I'm Victor Agreda Jr. with the Unofficial Apple Weblog, and we are here this week doing MacTech Magazine and TUAW interviews with developers at WWDC 2011. And I'm actually here with Brian Greenstone of Pangea Software, an early entrant into the, well, I want to say iOS and iPhone, but really you guys, I mean, you've been around for a while. You guys had the games on the iMac, and I remember that with the Rage 128 cards and all that great stuff.
Well, actually, we've been around for 25 years at the end of the year.
And before that, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you guys are working on right now.
Well, I've been working on Time Off, is actually what I've been working on. We just got started literally last week on some new stuff, and basically we want to do a new racing game. Cro-Mag Rally is the game that it was one of the two games that really was big for us on the iPhone, and it's one of the few games that I still play, because normally when I finish a game, I don't touch it again until it needs an update, because I'm just sick of it. But with Cro-Mag Rally, the latest update that had the multiplayer networking, I actually play that every single day. So I want to do another racing game, do a whole bunch of new little cool things, and so that game is literally 3 years old, three days old that we've been starting on the new one, so we'll see how it goes.
Cool. Well, you know, it was an interesting story when you guys launched Cro-Mag into the App Store, because that was, I think, a good proof or case, whatever, of Apple's ability to say, look, if you develop something for, you know, Mac OS, right, OS X, and using OpenGL, and if you did things like we asked you to do, it's going to be easy for you to take your stuff over to iOS. And I say easy, but it's you know, certainly easier than writing it from scratch, right?
Yeah, it only took us 2 days to get it running on the iPhone and about 2 weeks total to get it done. So by running, it basically launched and everything worked, but it didn't run well because the textures were, you know, all the original Mac size text. Everything was all whacked out. But it was 2 days of just tweaking the code to get it not only just iPhoneized, but the original game was Carbon. So we had to completely decarbonize it and make it Cocoa and all that whole conversion as well. So but only 2 days, so it was easy.
That's incredible. And of course, you said you've been in 25 years. I think a lot of people would probably remember, though, that you guys had games, and they were pre-installed, right, on the iMacs?
We had games installed on every Apple consumer machine built from, I want to say, 1993 through 2006. So the Performas, the iMacs, eMacs, iBooks, and everything in between, starting with a game called Power Pete way back in, I think that was 93 or 4. Yeah. Right, and actually we didn't publish that one. That was back when we weren't publishing, we were just doing developing, and MacPlay published that one. And then it went up through Bungie published Weekend Warrior that was also bundled on the power computing machines, the 3DFX cards, the old Performance. So it went from there, and it went almost up until the point where Apple stopped bundling anything because they didn't need to anymore. They're making so much money.
Yeah, well, and you know, that's when one of the things about the iPhone is that they don't bundle anything but their stuff.
Right.
And so, you know, but I think we might have, I know we talked about, you know, top 10 apps that you need to install when you first get your iPhone, and we mentioned games, and I think you guys have a really good stable of games that it's like if you show people these games, they're like, whoa, this is incredible. And especially when the first iPhone came out supporting OpenGL, that was a huge, huge thing. Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, you know, that was why Apple called us up to have us do that keynote back in 2008 here at WWDC, was because we had Enigmo and Cro-Mag Rally basically ready to go at that point. And so, you know, we got that last minute phone call that said, hey, can you come on down and do the keynote? And obviously that was huge for us with all the publicity, but it did show, you know, as a quick example of what you could do really quickly. And I was told at the time that Cro-Mag Rally was Steve Jobs' favorite game at the time, and it was, as far as I know, it's only one of 2 games that ever got their own Apple commercial. So we were the first one we got. It was during the Olympics in 08. There was actually an ad called Cro-Mag.
Wow.
That for 20 seconds out of the 30 seconds was pretty much our game.
That's fantastic. Well, speaking of keynotes, what did you think of the keynote yesterday?
Well, obviously, I think expectations were set low by Apple to begin with. They warned everybody, you know, don't expect any new iPhones. But there's definitely some good stuff. You know, the iCloud stuff will be cool, and iOS 5 certainly has some good stuff, some stuff that we'll be able to use, and you know, and of course, just the new updates to Mac OS X should be an improvement. So it's all little stuff, but I guess it all adds up to something cool.
I think so. Well, I mean, and for you guys, of course, the game center improvements and whatnot, that's a big deal, I think, because gamers are used to things like achievements, and they're used to, that sort of system for keeping people playing the game, like you're talking about. When you finish the game, sort of what's the compulsion to keep playing the game, right?
Exactly, and the Game Center was a huge boost for us. When did that come out? Last September, October, something like that? Because we went back and added the multiplayer back into Cro-Mag Rally Nanosaur 2, and then we put it into Enigmo, just a quick multiplayer mode, and it was huge because suddenly our sales obviously went up. People wanted multiplayer games, and it made our customers happy because we had already had over 1 million sold paid units of Cro-Mag and Enigmo, each. And so there were, a couple million people that just now got a free update with multiplayer, made them very happy. So it's good PR, and and we like I say, I play Cro-Mag Rally almost every day now that we have networking because it's just fun.
That's very cool. Well, is there anything out of the announcements, that were public, obviously, that you guys might use?
I'm trying to remember what was public and what isn't. I know there's stuff that's not public that I can't talk about that we're definitely going to use. Public, iCloud, obviously for just syncing up data between the apps. That's easy. That's kind of the kind of thing you do over a lunch break. It's so easy to do. So we'll certainly be using that. And I'm sure there's going to be other, elements of iOS 5 with OpenGL and all that we'll be able to improve future games and even go back and retrofit the old games to make them, up to date with the newest stuff.
And what about going the other way, going from iOS to Mac? Because now that gestures are becoming more important and more a part of the OS.
Yeah, well, we'll probably use that in our tools. We do all of our own tools. We don't license any libraries for all of our games, which is another reason why we were able to port them in 2 days.
Sure.
We didn't have to wait for somebody else's engine to be ported, which took
Unreal.
Unreal, which took forever. We just change some project settings and recompile, and there's the game.
Yeah.
So we have all of our own tools, and obviously we're going to make use of that, all of that kind of stuff. But it's funny that you mentioned that because we've been debating what to do. We now have the Mac versions of our games, which are fairly old at this point. We have the iOS versions, which aren't quite as old, and they're more modern. And we're like, well, what do we do when Carbon goes away? Because all of our games are Carbon. They date from the Carbon era. Do we go back in and try to rewrite all that stuff again, or do we just take the iOS versions and now send them back to the Mac?
Right.
And the current thought is it's probably easier to just delete all the Mac stuff we ever did, take the iPhone stuff, which is a more modern code base, and port it back to the Mac. So it would be ironic that it went from Mac to iPhone, iPhone back to Mac.
That's the way of the world.
It is.
And it's funny because Apple's mimicking that in that they're taking a lot of iOS stuff and they're baking it into Lion.
Exactly. It's whatever works on each platform, you just mix and match.
Absolutely. That's cool. That's cool. Well, is there? You mentioned this new game, so you guys have just started on that. Is there anything else you guys are working on other than just taking a break?
We've got a great idea for Enigmo 3 that we started. I guess it was a couple months ago I had the idea. So I started on some code but decided to do the racing game instead. But there's a great idea for Enigmo 3 that I really want to see happen, and we may farm that out because we just don't have the resources to do all these games at the same time internally. But anyway, we'll stay tuned on that one.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Sounds fun. Well, Brian, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And I'm Victor Greta Jr. here with Brian Greenstone, and we've been talking to developers all day today. And for MacTech Magazine and TUAW, thanks for watching.